Okay, we're about to do first boot on this system. We currently have all of the fans, bottom and top, and both pumps externally powered. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to do first boot with all that shit off.
Yeah.
And then you're going to turn it on, but I just want to hear it when it boots for the first time.
So hear any...
there's going to be no noise because nothing's going to happen except for the power supply fan, but I need to hear if anything goes wrong. Okay, crank it up. That was the hard drive spinning. Oh. It's all good. Plug it in. Makes you love that shit. That hard drive is loud, eh? It's like...
Can we do a first handshake here in the camera?
When we get the post. Oh, we have a RAID array. Interesting. Which we haven't set that up, that was the customer. Because these parts are second hand. That's why we're so worried about this one. Like, we're responsible to get this up and running. But these parts, some of them are old, and we have no idea if they're dead previously or they died in shipping, or I don't know. It's just always a concern. That green SLI bridge, that is horrible. We need to get that changed ASAP. Isn't there a little button or switch on there where you can change that? I've forgotten where it is, but it's underneath.
There we go.
So you can do cycling. Oh, just red, green, or blue. Let's get red.
Yeah.
Sweet. I'm going to stick this back in RAID. Reboot and see if that array gets picked up. It said it had failed a minute ago, but there was other weird settings running. See, are they on the same controller? Because we've had to plug them in weird. See, that top one, whatever's at the top, is on a different controller maybe. Yeah, RAID array failed. There's only one being recognised here. See?
Yeah.
But in the BIOS, they're all being recognised. So it's just a matter of the controller that it's plugged into. While we're building our systems, we wrap all of our panels up in sheets. This is a really soft cotton material. And then we wrap painter's tape around it to, hold the sheet in position, and then we stack it away somewhere safe during the build, particularly if it's custom painted, because a high gloss custom paint job is quite a bit more delicate than a powder coat. Powder coats are very tough. If you're going to do high gloss custom paint, you need to be extra careful with it. Even just kind of rubbing a bit of dust on the surface can damage it if it's not waxed, and that's why we also heavily wax all of our panels. And actually, when it comes time to clean this before I ship it, I'm going to put a lot of wax on the surface and then wrap it up, and the wax will help to protect it. And I'm also going to give a spray wax to the customer for him to clean it. So, if it gets dusty, instead of just wiping it with something, you wipe it with a microfiber cloth with spray wax. build is complete and up and running, and at this point I've been through all of the testing and validation, so the system is now ready to ship. But it's time for the grand tour, and we're going to start by taking a look at the loops, because for me this is the most interesting part of this build. It was actually going to be a huge weakness. These loops would have turned out just terrible, and that is because there's only radiators on this side, and I almost just gave up and donated an extra 2 radiators because this is a dual compartment case. It's the THW10. It's just like the TH10A, except that fits 480s, this fits 560s. But normally there would be a couple of radiators on this rear side, which would allow me to run hidden inlet tubes back to the top of the pump and res combos. And this gives the loops some symmetry. It prevents them crossing over. It actually makes the loops quite clean. But without that, having that extra length on this side to get to the inlets on the pump and res combos just made an absolute mess. And it took me about an hour to come up with this idea, after just staring at the build, to build both of the loops in parallel. Now, I've made another video on the Singularity Computers dev channel. I'll put a link in the video description, where I go into a lot of detail on all of this, how, why, how parallel works and all of that. So make sure you check that out if you want the extra details. But basically, both of the loops being in parallel makes them almost completely symmetrical. There are only a few small differences, such as how they wrap around the reservoirs here, the tubes on the monoblock loop. There's a few differences up here, but overall they appear to be symmetrical. And you can see this configuration up here is almost the same as the one down here. If you look straight on, the 4 tubes running through the middle all have the same gaps all the way. And so this is what running both loops in parallel has allowed me to do. There's basically 3 components on the GPU loop, the 2 GPUs and the radiator, so a third of the flow is traveling through each of those components at the same time if the resistance is the same, but it's not quite. And it's pretty much the same thing on the monoblock loop, because the monoblock is actually split into parallel as well. You can see it goes through each of the sides of the monoblock at the same time and through the radiator, so again a third, but the resistance not being the same, not quite. For a configuration like this, I recommend nothing less than a D5 for 3 components in parallel. And if you go over 3 components, and I suggest 2 D5s, or at least 2 pumps, below 3 you can get away with a DDC with just 2 components. But now I use fittings for the bends here because I just didn't have any tube in stock over 500 millimeters, and the 2 top ones are over 500. Plus I wanted to make a feature out of this. I know it's in front of the pump and res combos, and it covers them up, and some people aren't going to like that, but trust me, the alternative was going to be far worse. Let's take a look at the fittings in these loops. It looks like there's a lot of fittings here, but compared to a normal build of this scale in series, there are actually less. So we have a 90-degree single coming out of the outlet. Now these are all Bits Power Black Sparkle fittings, Bits Power 16mm acrylic tube. These fittings here are just a 90-degree fitting, which has a female G1 1/4" thread on each side, which you can screw the hardline compression fittings 16mm straight into. So that's what all of those are. We come across into a 90-degree single, 90-degree dual, out with a 90-degree dual. We have a 20mm extension, 90-degree single, 90-degree dual, and a 10mm extension to get that hardline compression fitting past the other one, or there wasn't enough room for them to sit next to each other. And then we go back into a Q fitting, and these Q fittings are always really handy for drainage systems or wherever you need a T, but maybe you need more than a T, which I'll show you what I mean in a sec. So then we have a mini D-plug and a Bits Power mini valve. Same thing on this side. So for the monoblock loop, we have again a 90-degree single coming out, 90-degree dual going into another Q fitting here, which is connected to the monoblock with a 25mm extension. So this, I actually started with T's here, but I swapped to Q's because I needed to get out of the top of this one, which the T's don't allow. So that's where these Q fittings can be really handy. Then we have a 90-degree dual and another 90-degree dual coming back out. Then we have a Q fitting, 25mm extension, 90-degree single, running back into the same fittings again as the other side.